Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Nice to see you all. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Tony.
Peter.
Give everyone a couple of minutes to funnel in here, and then we'll get started here.
And while you're funneling in, go ahead and go to the Menti there, and let's find out who is joining us today. It'll be nice to see the mix of individuals.
I will put it in the chat as well to make it very easy for everyone.
Hello, Greg. Hello, Frank. Hi, Michelle. Hey, Bethany. Hope you're having a nice Friday. As you join us, feel free to go ahead and scan or go to Menti. Let's find out who it is that's joining us today. That's always interesting, what your role is or your background. And Andrew put the link in the chat as well. So feel free to go there.
Got a good mix today.
Let's take a look and see who's joining us here. All right. All right. So that first column is the leaders. Then we've got some leadership development professionals. Oh, Dimitri's joining. Nice. Some HR leaders, a coach. Oftentimes we have lots of coaches joining us. So it's nice to see this mix changing a little bit. So my
Awesome,
name is
Pete. I'll keep letting people in here, Pete. We'll let you start rolling with this.
That sounds great. So I'll introduce myself. I haven't met all of you before, but my name is Pete Berridge, and I head up this organization called Change Positive and the Shift Positive Method. Andrew helps us out here as well. He is involved in the marketing effort. So all of the things that you see coming out are coming from Andrew's pen. And so, again, it's a pleasure having you here. As we get started, what I would like to do is ask you one other question to find out kind of the curiosities and the needs and the desires of this group. And that is this: if you could design the best 360 feedback mechanism that you could, what would that include? So now you ought to be able to see this as you go to that link. And what is it that you would include? If you were building one from scratch, what would make it the best possible? Maybe it's about cost or the time it takes or the different components that would be part of it. What would be those components that would be part? Would it be confidential or not? Those kinds of things. One that is transparent and helpful for the person receiving the feedback. Nice. Transparency. What else would make you've got experience with feedback interventions. What makes them really work that you wish that you could build into a tool? A safe place. Yeah, specifics. Specifics. Neat. Safe place. So that's psychological safety. Actionable. Short and sweet. uh, Short and sweet. Less lift on raters. That word raters is interesting. Transparency, transparent praise, not anonymous. So celebrate publicly. Time efficient, well received, consistent. People buying into the process. Right. Cost and time effective, specifics. Confidential that allows for direct productive feedback, place to make productive suggestions to the point. Okay. One with easy intention and transparency, specifics to allow achievable outcomes. All right. Well, I ask that because I want to set the container a little bit about what it is that we do at Change Positive. Our method is similar and different from some of the comments that you've got here. And so let me take us to that. Okay. So I want to share with you our why at Change Positive, why it is that we exist. So our whole goal is to change that experience of feedback for people, to change cultures and environments in which people work, and to change how we simply talk and relate to each other, to teach good dialogue skills, sometimes guised as a 360 or other sort of feedback intervention. And then the question that comes up then is, okay, well, does this shift positive methodology work? Do we know if it works or not? And we've been doing this since 2016. It's actually since 2012 really is when developed this, coming out of positive psychology and my background in that. But since 2016, we've been measuring the results of this as well. And recently, a statistician at Claremont University took a look at the data that we've been gathering and we asked this question: does the shift positive method work? And he found that there was a large effect on client progress in their developmental goals. That yes, shift positive methodology works. And this was 94 leaders with 544 evaluations of their progress in their leadership development goals. And all 94 showed positive improvement in their goals. And there were two things that were key to that. One, did they share their goals with others so that people knew what they were working on in their development? And that's really taking the research of Marshall Goldsmith and his team further, that happened some 15 years ago or so. And then second, and this is specific to our approach, did those allies, those individuals that were part of the feedback process, actually help in the development of that leader? And the answer to that was an overwhelming yes. And even more important than did the individual share their goals with others, the researcher found was that allyship was even more impactful than simply sharing goals. And we'll show you how it is that we create that culture of allyship through the feedback mechanism itself. But getting those individuals that are providing feedback, not to just provide feedback and move on, but to actually get invested in that leader's development themselves by simply offering to do at least one thing to support that leader in their professional development. So that's super exciting for us. This research just came back a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to be publicizing that. And if you are interested in that article, when we have that publication out, then just simply put your email in the chat, and Andrew will gather those and we'll make sure that you get that when it is published. So question then is, if this works, and so far the Shift Positive 360 has been done by executive coaches and leadership development professionals, where they're doing these narrative interviews themselves for a leader, sharing the results, doing a debrief, helping them with their development plan and so forth, and then doing a progress survey. How is it then that we can go further with it? So that led to then the development of the Shift Positive 360 AI over the last 18 months. And why did we do this? Well, the greatest request that we receive after doing this, generally with executives and higher level leaders in organizations, is, this is great. How do we scale it? How do we reduce the amount of time that it would take? And how do we reduce the price point for so that we can reach more, whether it's nonprofits, independent schools, next level leaders that are coming up through the organization. And also we had goals then in doing this of making sure that we maintain the key concepts, the philosophy behind the Shift Positive methodology, that it's a high caliber experience while being easy to use and intuitive to use, and that that we provide tiered service approach, meaning we're still going to be doing Shift Positive 360s, and coaches and leadership development professionals will for individuals where they're conducting the interviews themselves. But then how do you go to that next group? And then how can you do it in other ways? And what we're working toward then is the place where any employee can provide constructive feedback to any other employee on their professional development in a very, very easy way. We call that Shift Positive Empowered, which we're developing in 2025. So that's what our goals were behind the method. Here's then our agenda for today, what I want to take you through. The concepts of the Shift Positive 360. So I'm going to shed a little bit more light on that and the learning platform so that you can go deeper into that. And then we'll do a demo about Shift Positive 360 AI. And then we'll give you some specifics on how you can begin, because there's opportunities for you to begin using this right away without having to go through any sort of certification and so forth. And then we want to open it up for some Q&A and be done here then in about 35 minutes. So we've got some ground to cover. And if you have specific questions, go ahead and put those into the chat, and then Andrew will interrupt me where it feels like it fits best into today's agenda. So I mentioned a little bit about the concepts of Shift Positive, but it really comes down to two key areas. And if you're familiar with our work at all or our website, you'll see that it's based in the research behind positive psychology and the advances that have been made there over the last 15, 20 years, as well as creating a system of support. It's a different method where it is not about just that individual getting feedback, but it's about feedback being relative and relational to the person providing it. It's about the relationship and providing support to each other as we want to learn and grow. So what we teach, what people learn through the experience itself are these key feedback skills. How to move past our inattentional blindness and focus on weaknesses to getting to strengths and to leverage strengths. How to get from general concepts like competencies and so forth. One of these was what was in the Mentimeter there you saw, but to get to those specific behaviors that are going to help that person to be more effective. How to get from problem to solution orientation, leveraging the research from Tony Grant. How to get away from being stuck on the past to being thinking about the future for that person, the future about us, the we. And then instead of treating everybody the same in terms of everybody should have these particular behaviors, it's like, how can we be versatile with one another so that we can be most effective together, given our personality differences, style differences, preferences, and so forth. And then through that process is the way in which we get individuals who are helping that leader to move from being stakeholders or raters, because in our approach, they're not rating anything, to becoming allies. This is not an assessment tool. This is actually a way of helping people to communicate with each other about what's going to help us to be most effective together, and what could you do to be most effective in working with me. So, and then finally, what that leads to then, and this is really interesting given what was in the Mentimeter, is that it is not a confidential process. It's not an anonymous process. It's very transparent. That leader knows who said what. And that's important because context matters. What one person is looking for from that individual is going to be different than what another person is looking for from that individual. So we find that to be a critical aspect of it. And the amazing thing is, if you help people to learn these earlier skills through the process of reframing from problems to solutions and so forth, then they really have no issue sharing that with the person, because we're talking about what you want rather than what you don't. Okay. So anything to interrupt me there, Andrew? Or should I keep moving
Nope,
forward?
keep on going.
All right. So I'm going to then move us over to where you can find out about these key concepts. Obviously, you can go to our website, and if you go to the website and go to Shift Positive 360 AI, you're going to get a lot more information about how this works, how it's different, what the different roles are, the pricing, that kind of thing. But then key to that is your role as program manager, the person that actually is able to um, run this process. And you can put your information in the bottom, and you'll immediately get a link so that you can then go to the learning platform. I'm going to show you the learning platform, and Andrew is actually going to be putting a link into the chat for the learning platform. But let me show you what you would encounter there. So this is something that you can have access to right away. And basically, what we've designed is a process that is self-administered. So you can act as program manager, and you can assign uses of this platform to people in your world, whether it's your coaching clients, whether it's your employees. And in order to get to that place, we want you to have a background in those core concepts, because as you saw, even in the Mentimeter, this approach is different. So what are some of those core concepts? The core concepts are these. First, understanding the state of feedback and why it's broken, and how our physiology really relates to that, why feedback is difficult. Then it goes into this balance of positive psychology and social support and those core components. And then it goes into deeper information about strengths and the importance of recognizing and reinforcing strengths and the impact it has on a person's development. Then a solution focused approach rather than a problem focused approach. How to go from stakeholders to building allies, transparency over confidentiality, understanding the energy of the leader and how that impacts the person, how that impacts the people around them. And then what's specific to that person is what's their motivation for change. Obviously, feedback can be offered in a more constructive way, but there's also the readiness of the person to receive feedback in a constructive way. And so we talk about that, their motivation for wanting to go through that developmental process. So this is all about content and understanding the key concepts behind the methodology. Then it's about, well, how do I actually do this? How can I administer the platform? So it tells you the nuts and bolts through video of how to navigate through the platform. And I'm going to show you a bit of that today, but this will give you even more detail on it. And then the steps to conducting the Shift Positive 360, and then also the steps to conducting the Shift Progress Survey, that same survey that led to the results I talked about earlier of those 94 leaders and the progress that they've made. So a person can click on the link that Andrew's put in the chat. They can go here. You can begin doing this. There's no cost with this. And the more people that know about this methodology, the better. And then from there, when you finish this, we'll get an email. You'll be sending an email through the platform, and then we will give you access to the platform. And that is free access to the platform. And in fact, you'll even have one free use on the platform. And this is what that platform looks like then. So now we're going to start moving into the demo itself. Before doing that, any pause on the concepts and learning about it before we move there?
You actually answered a question you didn't know came in around if this was free, if they had to pay for this type of a training. So you hit on the few questions I got there already.
Great. Yeah. Yep. It's free. What we found is what we thought is that we want people to be able to move forward with this rather than waiting for certification time and that sort of thing. We'll talk about Shift Positive 360 certification, why that is still a really valuable thing to go through and how that may help you, even in terms of pricing. But it's not necessary. It's not a requirement that you go through the full Shift Positive 360 certification in order to begin using this platform. So you go through those learning modules, and then it takes you to, you'll get an email with a registration link, and it'll take you to this program manager dashboard. So let me orient you to that a little bit then. On this dashboard, if you were to click on where it does say dashboard, what'll happen is that it'll show you, and then it'll show how many 360s and progress surveys you have available to you. So just by registering, you're going to have one made available to you for free, a $750 value that you can use. And next, I'll point out your user profile. So you can go to your user profile and you can upload a logo. If you want to co-brand the reports with your own logo, your company logo, you can do that. And then I'll take you to the purchasing area. And on purchasing, this is where you can buy those 360s for your employees or your clients. In the price there, I see people leaning in a little bit. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Is that helpful? Bethany, yes. I saw you doing that. So thanks. Appreciate the instant feedback. So this costs $750 for that employee or that leader. It doesn't matter how many people are part of the process in terms of the allies around them. You can have it, they can send it out to 6 people or 16 people. 20 people, it doesn't matter. It's still $750. And then there's price breaks at different levels. So if you're bringing it into an organization or doing a whole lot of these, then you can do that. Now, I mentioned earlier that you don't need to go through the Shift Positive 360 certification, which we do for coaches, leadership development professionals, and so forth. But if you do go through that and become part of our community of 250 certified individuals, then you'll be able to access these for half price. It'll be $375. And what that will do for you as well is you'll be much more deeply steeped in those principles. And it's not that it's simply understanding them and understanding the questions and so forth, but just like any deep learning process, you will actually change as an individual. You begin to embody those principles even more of solution orientation, strengths, focus, and the importance of allyship and relatedness when it comes to feedback and relationships. So there is a plus to going through the full Shift Positive 360 certification, and we've got those certification times lined up for 2025 out on our website. So feel free to look at those. They're offered virtually and they're offered in person coming up in Toronto and in Minneapolis. So we look forward to having you join us if this is the little nudge that you need. Support is simply a way to reach out to our tech team and have them respond if you run into any issues, and then employees. And this is where then you're able to add an employee, create an employee, and kick off the process. I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller so you can see then the process here as well. So I'm going to set somebody up. If you were to add one of your clients or add an employee, I'm going to add Bill Berditzman. And then it asks for the gender preference, because that's important, because then the language changes throughout the interview process to be either he, she, or they as appropriate when an individual is completing the survey. So you save that. And then when you want to begin the process, you want to assign that to the individual. They begin the process and it says, they're going to receive an invitation. Do you want to take this out of your paid uses? Confirm that. And then it sends off the email. And then if they lose that, you can come back and you can resend that for them to be able to log in then. I'm going to then, what you can do as program manager then is this is your platform for being able to track where people are at in the process and to actually help them through the process as well. So I can see here that Johnny is actually at the close of his, whereas Bill and Fazil are at the video stage or the beginning stage of it. And what you can do then is actually click on an individual, and now you can go into their platform and you can see where they're at, and you can actually help them out. So what the coach or the leadership development professional, this program manager, can do is help with adding allies, with sending emails, with resending emails, with tracking the progress of those allies. Have they completed the survey on that leader yet or not? And then help with when deciding when to close it, being able to review the report ahead of time. And then oftentimes it's sitting down with that person, helping them through the debrief of that narrative report. So you simply click on that person's name and you'll be able to help in those areas. What you won't be able to do is actually complete any of the surveys on behalf of that client or complete surveys on behalf of the allies around them. So that's what you can do then as program manager. But let's get into the employee platform then and what it is like for the employee. Okay. So let me take us there then. Okay, so now sent that email to Fazil, and he then clicks through on a link and ends up here. And so it looks the same as it does for you. And this is where it can go in and change, edit their information if they want. But it starts with understanding the platform. So video instructions come up.
Congratulations on the opportunity to use the Shift Positive 360 AI. We all want to learn and grow and develop personally and professionally. At the same time, we don't change and develop by ourselves. It is through the interactions, reinforcement, and support with others.
So I'll stop it there, but it goes through then how that person can utilize the platform, how to add allies, how to do their own self-survey, those sorts of things. Then it automatically moves them forward to the next step after they've completed that. So they'll go in and they start to identify who's important to their success and for whom are they important to that person's success. And they can add those individuals. It might be a direct report, a peer manager, and so forth. And then they'll be able to add as many as they want, send out an invitation for that person to take the survey. And that then goes out to the individual. And then they can monitor the progress for that person. Okay. While that's happening, they can go in and they can complete their own self-survey. And so the individual does a survey as well. The questions are a little bit different, and it automatically is only asking them their own questions, such as that motivation question that I mentioned earlier. And then those individuals that then receive that email, they can then begin to start taking it. So here's that email that went out to Joe. Joe then can begin to do that survey. And so Joe clicks on that link, gets that message, it explains some of the ways in which it's different, and they then start the survey.
Welcome to the Shift Positive 360. This process is designed to provide your colleague with valuable insights for their professional development. A little about the SP360. 1. SP360 is grounded in positive psychology, emphasizing what's working well and how it could work even better. So focus on strengths and solutions, what you appreciate and want more of, rather than problems or what isn't working. 2. We commonly overlook things we're not actively seeking, a phenomenon known as inattentional blindness. Coupled with the negativity bias,
So I'll pause it there because it's going to go through these key aspects of how it's different. The negativity bias, a solution orientation, that what we're capturing is what is solution oriented and strengths rather than what's broken and not working, and why context is important and why it is not anonymous, so that that individual can be versatile and working with each person in a way that helps the two of them be effective together. So it goes through those aspects of it, and then it goes into how to actually interact with the platform.
Sounds like you have a strong work ethic and very.
So there's a little demo in there as well. So it's about a 6-minute intro to do that. The individual then, if I am Bill, I'm going to go in here then, and I'm going to click through, and then we simply start having a conversation with the AI. So the AI is what's conducting the survey.
Tell me briefly about your background.
Okay. And so I can begin to interact, and I can either type in there or I can simply start talking. Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Iowa and was one of 6 kids, worked at my uncle's farm and then a hardware store before going to the University of Northern Iowa and the University of Minnesota, and then ultimately the University of Pennsylvania to study positive psychology.
It sounds like you have a diverse background with roots in hard work and education. You mentioned working on your uncle's farm and then at a hardware store before pursuing studies at several universities, ultimately focusing on positive psychology. What experiences or insights from your past would you consider important for your colleague to know about you?
So I'm going to have this conversation back and forth. After 3 times, it's going to say, if you feel like you've answered this fully, go ahead and click summarize, and then check your answer before moving forward. And what we've done then over this last 18 months is training the AI in those principles that I showed you earlier, just as we train coaches and leadership development professionals in those principles. How would you conduct that interview? That's what makes this very unique, is the work that went into crafting that conversation and making sure that it is responding with those principles behind it. And then when the person feels good about their answer, they simply click summarize, and it comes over here, and then they can review that and make changes to it as they want. So the overview of this methodology then is this, that people find really interesting. You notice the first question was about me. It wasn't about my colleague. It wasn't about Fazal. It was about me. And the first few questions are that, because what that does is it opens the individual up, it puts them in a positive place generally. And with that, it actually makes them more open, more creative. They literally physically will see more. And then it gets them into that frame of mind of development rather than evaluation, which is very important. And then we ask them, why is the client important to your successes? What would they be doing to help you?
Suppose that Fazal Plouffe played a really big part.
So what would Fazal be doing to help me meet my goals as Joe? Then we started talking about strengths. What is it that you love about Fazal? What are his greatest strengths? And then we get to that question, which people sometimes struggle with, which is, how do I say what I think needs to be said, the thing that is bothering me, or it isn't working so well? So let's try that then. Or actually, let me pause for a second and continue to lay this out for you. Then we go through what's going to make that client even more effective. And then we use David Cooper Ryder's appreciative inquiry to get into successes you've had in the past, so that then you can begin to envision a desired future of what it is that you want in the future with that individual. Then we go into the allyship. What are you going to do to help Fossil to move in that direction if you want to see them develop in this way? And then what's the impact of their energy on you? How do they come across to you? Building off of Kim Cameron's work at the University of Michigan, the Ross School of Business, and the understanding the impact of the individual's energy on the people around them. And then some traditional types of questions. And then it leads to a final close about how was this interview for you? And that's where oftentimes it leads then to, how did she get one of these? How did he get one of these? How can I get one of these? Because people want that sort of constructive developmental feedback and allyship. So let me take us back then to the client more effective, and we will try that one.
If Fasal were even more effective, what would he be doing? What would Fasal do? What would be better?
So what would Fasal do to be even better? I really struggle with his communication style. He talks over me a lot and doesn't let me, I don't feel like I'm being heard, but I don't know how to tell him.
It sounds like you're looking for a way to communicate more effectively with your colleague. Instead of focusing on what's not working, let's think about what effective communication with him would look like. For example, do you want him to pause and give space for others to express their thoughts during conversations? Or maybe to ask for your input specifically during discussions? What would you like him to do differently to ensure you feel heard?
I'd love all those things, but I don't know if he is capable or even cares.
It can be challenging when you're unsure about someone's intentions or abilities, but focusing on specific actions can make a difference. Imagine if he started incorporating pauses in the conversation to invite input, or actively asked for your thoughts. How would that change the dynamic? What is one small step he could take that would be noticeable and help foster better communication between you?
I think I'd fall out of my chair if he started doing that. But yeah, if he were just mindful about pausing and asking me my opinion, I would like that a lot.
It's great that you have a clear idea of what you'd like to see. Encouraging your colleague to be more mindful about pausing and asking for your opinion could indeed shift the communication dynamic positively. When he starts doing this, what do you think the impact would be on your working relationship and overall team communication?
So right there, it was framing to me, if I feel like I've answered it, then we can move on. I maybe would say just a little bit more and say, if he were to do that, I think that I wouldn't be so tense when I meet with him. It would really help me to relax, feeling like, no, he is going to want to hear my opinion.
That's a great insight. Feeling relaxed and knowing that your opinion is valued could lead to a more open and collaborative environment. How do you think you could communicate this positively to your colleague? Perhaps by expressing appreciation when he does make efforts to include and listen to your perspectives.
Okay, so then I can click summarize. It's going to go through that conversation, and then I can review that before I move on to the next one. Pauses in the conversation would change our communication dynamic, make me feel less tense. And then deleting anything that doesn't really feel like me, or change it there. So
what is one small, achievable step that he can take?
A person moves through then that survey. It guides them through that. And then at the end, they close that and they click finish. The individual, it's going to show that it's incomplete. They can actually come back and finish it at another time if they need to, up until the point where the survey itself is closed. And then going back then to the individual here, to Fazil, then he can watch that progress as it's happening. And if I were to refresh, it would show that that one is complete because the person hit complete and so forth. They would be able to do their own self-survey, as I mentioned. And then when they want to close the survey, then it'll say, reach out to the program manager. And they will then be able to review and close the survey for you. And so from there, if we then go back to the program manager, I can show you what happens there then. So, oops, not the one that I want to be on. Okay. And you get notifications that one's been completed, that sort of thing as it's happening. So then be able to see that and be able to track then that progress that's happening over here. So now if I go in, I'm back in the program manager platform. I can take a look and I can see that Joe has completed the progress survey. And then I can see when the employee has completed it, and then the employee maybe, and I'm going to jump to a different one here, Johnny Holiday, because it's ready to close. And so if I look at Johnny, I can see that, yep. So Rudolph, the S-Man, Will Ferrell, Mrs. Claus, they've all been part of it. It's either in progress or complete. I could reach out to them again, send them another email asking them to finish it up, and I see that the employee has completed it as well. So Johnny Holiday has completed his, and then I can go ahead and close that survey. And what happens then is I can then take a look at it ahead of time. And so this is what that report then comes up like. It's a narrative report. It's not summarizing, it's not coming up with key themes and so forth, because those individual aspects of it are really important. And so this is where then that program manager can meet with the employee and start going through it together and decide when to send it to them and so forth, and then coach them through that process of, out of all this information, what do you really want to pay attention to? What is it that's most important for you? And let's craft your development plan. And that development plan is built into the platform. It's really just a PDF that the person can access. And it's a basic sort of development plan like this, of the goals, the actions, the strengths to leverage, allies to support, and specifically what they're going to do to support that individual, measures of success and progress. And so that then is really the core aspect of getting through the Shift Positive 360. And take us back one more time here, because what you would have seen then, the next part of it is going back and measuring success. So 90 days later, the platform notifies the individual of, okay, let's see what sort of changes your allies have seen in you. And that's where then it's conducting this progress survey. There's video instructions. The person goes in and they put in the goals from their development plan. They then review those individuals, and are those still the same people? And then they send that out. And that is the type of survey that is just done online. And it looks kind of like this. And so it is, it goes through each one of those areas or goals of that individual. What have you noticed that's working well? What can they do to become even more effective going forward? Because we want to be forward looking again. How frequently did you talk with them about it? What actions did you take? Did you do the one thing that you said that you would do? How frequently did you do that? How did you help them? Re-enrolling them, what are you willing to do going forward again to help them? And then what impact has it had on the business? And how would you quantify that? So that you have that way of showing that, yes, this is working. And what that leads to then is a report that is called the progress survey. And that looks like this. So this is the progress survey, where it'll show who has taken that. What sort of progress have we seen? Are those bars moving to the right, that they're becoming much more effective? So again, back to the research on what we found in each of those 94 leaders is that every one of them made progress. And then it gets into, and again, it's not confidential, but what have you seen that's working well? So again, you understand what works well between you and that person. What to become even more effective? Did you talk about the development goals? Did you do the one thing that you said that you would do? What was it that you did? How frequently did you do it? What are you willing to do going forward? And what impact have you seen on the business? And how would you quantify that? So that rounds out the entire process. So let me stop share there, because we just zipped through quite a bit and we've got about 5 minutes here. But that is it in a nutshell for you. The kinds of things then, the call to action is try it yourself. Go to Rizuku and go through those learning platforms. See if this is a fit for you and your practice or you and your organization. And then when you go through that learning, then you'll get a link to the platform. Go out and try it. Go out and practice it. You've got a free use in there. See if it works for you. Maybe this is something you want to incorporate into your leadership development program in your organization. Maybe it is something for a specific leader that you've got in mind, or for a way to help those up-and-coming leaders in your organization. So, or maybe it's part of your coaching practice so that you can scale yourself and offer those different tiers. Well, or just simply reach out to us and Andrew will put a link to my calendar in there if you'd like to discuss how it maybe fits for your organization or for you and your practice. Well, or consider even getting certified in the full Shift Positive 360 and reducing the price of the tool for you. So now let's open it up for questions.
Yeah, we're going to rapid fire this because I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we have 4 minutes, so I'm going to combine a few questions here. One, I'll answer, Pete, because I can answer this one, is I got a couple of people that asked, like, yes, you get all of that for $750. There's no extra for the progress survey. There's no extra anything like that. It's everything we saw today was included in what we had talked about. The one thing, Pete, so I'll pass to you, Pete. How long does one survey normally take? How many allies are recommended? What would you say to that?
So the number of allies that's recommended is really based on this. Think of what's the goal behind it. So if it's a team building goal, maybe it is all the members of that team. If it is a leader's development, we ask this question: who's important to your success and for whom are you important to their success? Rather than a formula of 4 direct reports, 2 peers, 1 manager, that sort of thing. In terms of numbers, generally 6 to 10 or 12 individuals is the averages, the range that we're seeing. And I'm actually finding, even with smaller numbers like 6 to 8, that you get really, really good information. Time to take it. That's one of the things that we're going to be closely monitoring and we want your feedback on, because the first time people go through it, they end up spending probably closer to an hour and a half on an individual. And we want to understand, is that too much or not? And do we need to modify that in some way? The second time they do it, especially if they get comfortable with the voice-to-voice technology, then it seems to speed up quite a bit. But that's one thing that we're going to be monitoring, and we'll be doing a survey of early users to find out, what do you love about it? What would make it even stronger? This is the 1.0 public release. And so we've done lots of testing and that sort of thing, piloting and whatnot. But now we're ready to see, and we'll be surveying you to find out what would make it even better.
Awesome. Next one is, can program managers track the progress of multiple leaders simultaneously through this platform?
Exactly. Yep, you can.
And then this is a quick one. Is this OpenAI? What kind of security is in place?
Yeah. This is using ChatGPT through OpenAI, but it is not on OpenAI, and the data is not shared with OpenAI. They do the processing, but all the data resides with us. So it's through an API with OpenAI, but it is not something that resides on OpenAI. So it's fully GDPR compliant, and it resides with our organization, not with OpenAI, and they do not use it to train their systems.
Perfect. And then last one here that we'll try to combine is, how do you see SP360AI integrating within existing leadership development programs, HR systems? Like, talk a little bit about that real quick.
Yeah, we've been using Shift Positive 360, the full coaching conducted interviews, as part of organizations' leader development programs, where oftentimes they're bringing together the future leaders and they're doing like a year-long program learning about finance and marketing and those sorts of things. And they are doing a stretch project together and so forth. And what's been really beneficial is beginning that with concepts behind constructive feedback, doing the Shift Positive 360, having them share their results and their plans with each other, then having them work on their plans throughout that 8-month or year-long period of time, and then doing the progress survey and sharing the results of their progress survey, and again, re-enrolling their peers as allies in addition to people who might have been part of the 360. Yeah, it's a really powerful combination.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Just one more reminder. So we're right at time. We'll send out the recording of this by the end of this afternoon, and we'll have that link to the Rizuku training, a link that you can schedule time with Pete if you want to talk about anything one-on-one with him. But Pete, any last words here? Otherwise, we'll let these lovely people go.
I just want to say my appreciation. I recognize some names and some faces here, and it's wonderful to have you be part of this process, this journey with us, because we rely on your eyes and ears and experiences to help us keep making this better and better to meet our overall mission. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Hey, thank you, Pete. Thank you, Andrew. Enjoy your weekend.
You bet. You all take care. We'll see you. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. I'll